July 20th, 1944, a sweltering summer day deep in the pine forests of East Prussia. Inside the heavily guarded Wolfschanz, the Wolf's Lair, Adolf Hitler prepared for a routine briefing. Maps of crumbling fronts covered the tables, the Red Army advancing relentlessly from the east, Allied forces grinding through Normandy in the west. For the men gathered around him, generals, aides, and staff officers, the war was already lost in all but name. Yet Hitler ranted on about miracle weapons and unbreakable will. Among them stood Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, chief of staff to the Home Army, a brilliant aristocrat scarred by war, one eye lost, one hand mangled in North Africa. He carried a briefcase containing not papers, but a bomb. As the meeting dragged on, Stauffenberg placed the briefcase beneath the heavy oak table, close to Hitler, excused himself with a fabricated phone call, and left the room. Minutes later, at 12:42 p.m., a massive explosion ripped through the wooden barracks. Windows shattered, the roof collapsed, and smoke poured into the sky. 4 men died instantly. Hitler, miraculously, survived, shielded by the table's thick leg, suffering only burns, ruptured eardrums, and shock. The plot, Operation Valkyrie, had failed to kill its target. But what unfolded in the hours that followed would reveal something extraordinary. Thousands of German soldiers, officers, and commanders across the Reich refused to follow Hitler's orders, many for the first time in the war. This was no spontaneous rebellion. For years, a network of conspirators, generals like Ludwig Beck, Henning von Tresckow, and Friedrich Olbricht, had plotted to remove Hitler, believing he was leading Germany to total destruction. They were not Democrats or pacifists. Many had supported the war early on, but by 1944, the moral abyss of the regime, the Holocaust, the slaughter of civilians, the suicidal orders, had become unbearable. As news of the explosion spread, the conspirators in Berlin activated Valkyrie. Originally a plan to suppress internal unrest, now repurposed, it ordered the Reserve Army to seize key points in Berlin, arrest SS and Nazi leaders, and take control. General Friedrich Fromm, commander of the Reserve Army, hesitated but initially cooperated. Troops moved into position. In Paris, the military governor Karl Heinrich von Stülpnagel arrested over 1,200 SS and SD officers in a swift, bloodless coup. For a few precious hours, it seemed the plot might succeed. Soldiers across Germany received orders to disarm the SS and secure government buildings, and many obeyed without question, believing Hitler dead. In Vienna, Prague, and other cities, officers prepared to act. The conspiracy reached deep. Even Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, recovering from wounds, was loosely connected. But Hitler survived. By evening, his voice crackled over the radio, furious and alive. Loyalists rallied. Fromm, sensing the tide turning, betrayed the plotters, ordering the arrest and execution of Stauffenberg and his comrades in the Bendlerblock courtyard that very night. Yet in those chaotic hours, something profound happened. German soldiers, men sworn to absolute obedience, chose to refuse Hitler's regime, not out of cowardice, but conviction. This was the day the myth of unbreakable loyalty cracked forever.
To understand why German soldiers refused orders on July 20th, we must go back years, to the quiet moral awakenings of men who once believed in Hitler. The July plot was not born in a day. It was the culmination of a resistance that grew in the shadows of atrocity. Henning von Tresckow, a brilliant staff officer on the Eastern Front, was among the first to turn. In 1941, during the invasion of the Soviet Union, he witnessed mass executions of Jews and commissars by Einsatzgruppen. Sickened, he declared, "We must act or we will be complicit in murder." By 1943, Tresckow attempted to kill Hitler with a bomb disguised as cognac bottles on his plane. It failed to detonate due to cold. Klaus von Stauffenberg joined later, radicalized by the regime's crimes. A cultured aristocrat with a deep sense of duty, he initially supported the war against Bolshevism. But reports of mass murder, the extermination of Jews, and Hitler's suicidal strategy turned him. "It is time to act," he said. "Someone must do it." The conspirators were a diverse group: conservatives, Christians, socialists like Julius Leber, military men like Beck and Albrecht. They drafted plans for a post-Hitler Germany, democratic, decent, ending the war honorably. Many knew failure meant death, but proceeded anyway. Earlier attempts failed spectacularly, bombs that didn't explode, opportunities missed, but each failure strengthened resolve. By 1944, with Germany crumbling, they believed removing Hitler could save millions of lives, German and Allied. On July 20th, when Stauffenberg's bomb detonated, the machinery of resistance sprang to life. In Berlin, General Paul von Haas ordered troops to occupy ministries. Colonel Georg Hansen issued Valkyrie orders nationwide. For hours, soldiers followed these commands, arresting SS officers, securing radio stations. In Paris, the response was swift and effective. Stülpnagel and his staff disarmed the SS without resistance, proof that many regular army officers despised the black uniformed terror. Why did they obey anti-Hitler orders? Because by 1944, many soldiers and officers privately agreed the war was lost, the regime criminal. Loyalty to Germany, not Hitler, drove them. But as Hitler's survival became known, fear returned. Many who acted now denied involvement. The window closed. Yet for a brief moment, the German military showed it could choose conscience over blind obedience.
While Berlin descended into chaos, the boldest defiance unfolded in Paris. Under occupation since 1940, the city was governed by General Karl Heinrich von Stülpnagel, a conspirator linked to the plot. When news of the explosion reached him, he acted decisively. At 4 p.m., Stülpnagel received confirmation from Berlin. Hitler dead, Valkyrie activated. He immediately ordered the arrest of all SS and SD personnel in Paris, over 1,200 men, including senior commanders like Karl Oberg, head of the security police. Wehrmacht troops, many from regular army units, moved with precision. SS officers were invited to meetings, disarmed and detained. Bars and headquarters were surrounded. The operation was bloodless, no shots fired, no resistance. By nightfall, the entire Nazi security apparatus in France was imprisoned in Fresnes prison and the Hotel Continental. For hours, Paris was free of SS control. Soldiers who carried out the arrests did so willingly. Many hated the SS for their brutality, Gestapo torture, and racial fanaticism. One officer later recalled, "We were glad to do it. Finally, someone stood up." Stülpnagel even released French prisoners as a gesture. The military governor, he believed, was acting to restore honor. But then came the devastating call: Hitler alive. Loyalist Field Marshal Gunther von Kluck, commander in the West, wavered and withdrew support. Stülpnagel ordered the release of SS prisoners. Many were drunk, unaware of their brief captivity. Betrayed and despairing, Stülpnagel attempted suicide on the drive back to Germany, blinding himself. Captured, he was hanged weeks later. Yet Paris showed what was possible: an entire army command defying Hitler, soldiers refusing to protect the regime's enforcers. It was the plot's only real success.
Hitler's survival unleashed hell. From the wolf's lair he raged, "This gang of traitors must be exterminated." The Gestapo, led by fanatics, hunted conspirators with savage efficiency. In Berlin, Fromm executed Stauffenberg, Ulbricht, and others that night to cover his tracks. But it was too late. Thousands were arrested, not just plotters, but anyone remotely connected. Rommel forced to commit suicide, Tresckow taking his own life with a grenade, Beck failed suicide, then shot. The People's Court under Roland Freisler became a theater of humiliation. Defendants tortured, tried in show trials, hanged with piano wire at Plötzensee prison, their deaths filmed for Hitler's viewing. Over 7,000 arrested, nearly 5,000 executed. Families punished under Sippenheft, relatives imprisoned or killed. The officer corps was decimated. Yet even in repression, cracks appeared. Some soldiers hid suspects, others quietly mourned the dead as patriots. The plot failed to kill Hitler or end the war. It continued 9 more months, but it destroyed the myth of unified loyalty. Soldiers now knew resistance was possible, even honorable. July 20th, 1944 was the last chance to stop Hitler from within. It failed, but revealed profound truth. Not all Germans followed blindly. Thousands of soldiers on that day refused orders to protect the regime, acting on conscience, duty, and hope for a better Germany. They were not heroes in victory, but in defeat, paying with their lives to prove moral courage existed even under tyranny. Post-war Germany honored them. Streets named after Stauffenberg, memorials at Bendlerblock. The resistance became a foundation myth for the Federal Republic, proof that another Germany was possible. The day soldiers refused Hitler's orders was brief, but it echoed through history, a reminder that even in darkness, light can break through.